Hey, Steve. Yeah. It's just sound language. Coming in on sound language. Yeah. Can you do me a favor? Just do it like that, bro. Yep. At first, I was afraid. I was petrified. Kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. Nice job. Well done. Thank you. If you want me to keep going, you have to stay.
Good morning. My name is Crystal Fletcher. I'm a lieutenant with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department in the Public Affairs Division. Today, CMPD is publishing and sharing its 2024 annual report. The report will highlight key statistics on crime management and delve into our operational approaches and new initiatives. This annual report aims to provide our community with a comprehensive understanding of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's proactive and reactive efforts. It highlights the significant progress made by our officers while acknowledging the challenges they encounter daily in serving our community. This morning, we are at the Law Enforcement Center in Uptown Charlotte as we deliver this material to you and take your questions at the end. For those in attendance and others watching remotely, thank you for being with us. We appreciate your interest in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department and our collective crime fighting and reduction strategies. In 2024, Charlotte experienced an overall crime reduction of 3% compared to 2023, which includes a 4% reduction in property crime and a 3% increase in violent crime. Please note that before we dive deeper into the data, we want you to understand how the data is collected and presented. Our data is consistent with the FBI's National Incident-Based Reporting System, otherwise known as NIBRS. NIBRS is focused on victimization as opposed to incidents. You may remember the incident that happened in mid-December involving a school bus. During this one incident, 2 parties exchanged gunfire, resulting in a bus full of students, a nearby church, and 2 other vehicles being shot into. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured. However, this single incident had a total of 37 victims. So 1 incident and 37 victims. Our victim count is slightly up for the year for violent crimes and is down for the year for property crimes, with an overall total reduction in victims holistically. Total reported incidents for 2024 are down 3% compared to 2023. This includes a 3% decline in property crime incidents and a 1% drop in violent crime incidents. While recognizing the importance of decreases in reported incidents, one of our primary objectives remains to continue actively reducing victimization within our community. We certainly want individuals in need of emergency help to call us, and in 2024, the CMPD handled more than 1 million 911 calls. Last year, there were over 545,000 police interactions, which is an increase of 2% over 2023. Additionally, CMPD made over 15,000 arrests, a 5% increase over 2023. We have a lineup of speakers here to dive deeper into some of these important topics. Again, we will take questions once all the speakers are done presenting. Please remember, we will only take questions pertaining to the annual report. CMPD Police Chief Johnny Jennings will come up now to provide some remarks regarding 2024. Chief?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Let me just start out by saying that I could not be more proud of the work that our men and women did in 2024. We faced some serious adversity last year, but the people within this agency, both sworn and non-sworn, continued to set their goals to keep our community safe. And for that reason, being the police chief in the best department in the entire country, I'm humbled by that, and I'm proud of the people and the men and women and the work that we were able to do last year. So you look at our city, and our community continues to grow by about 100 residents per day. 100 residents per day moving into Charlotte. And with that growth comes a lot of challenges, not just within the police department, but for our entire city. When you start looking at public safety along with infrastructure, the growth is phenomenal, and we have to be able to keep up with that in some fashion. So the influx of residents also brings a lot of special events. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department conducted operations plans to keep our community safe in over 160 events last year. That's 160 events that we plan, and that we ensure the safety and security of those that are attending. And that's nothing to take lightly when you look at the demand that it puts on our agency. Now, considering we're expecting even more of these events in 2025, we have to start looking at ways that we can provide that safety and security, but also look after the men and women who wear this badge that cannot continue to be pulled for these events, and how do we ease that stress when it comes to the necessary manpower that it requires. So a couple things that we're looking at is also to empowering a lot of civilian employees. We already have a civilian program that allows for traffic directions. We're going to increase that as much as we can and have a robust presence of civilian personnel that can stand and direct traffic, and also provide them opportunities to work in off-duty capacity just as our officers are able to do. So with that, the hope is that it will ease some of the pulls of the necessary to ensure that we keep some of these events safe, particularly with road races where you have to stop traffic or direct pedestrians. So we're looking forward to leveraging that in the future. And we're also looking at implementing innovative solutions, leveraging technology and personnel resources to enhance public safety. We had significant strides last year as I stood before you talking about juvenile crime and how juvenile crime was plaguing our community and victimizing our citizens within the Charlotte-Mecklenburg community. I am proud to report this year that auto thefts are down 8%, which includes a 15% reduction in the Kia Hyundai thefts that we spoke a whole lot about last year. With the Kia Hyundai challenge that we saw on social media, that it was important for us to work with not just the dealerships, but also with the community and to figure out ways that we can reduce and stop this influx of crimes with the Kia and Hyundais. Juvenile crime is significantly down as well. We had a 9% decline in juvenile suspects of criminal incidents last year. We were also 22% down in juvenile suspects involved in gun-related incidents last year. And we've had a lot of great work that went into our initiatives when it came to juvenile crime. We're going to talk a little bit more about that juvenile crime in just a little bit, but I also want to continue to talk about the challenges that we faced related to homicides and aggravated assaults that involve firearms. These incidents often stem from escalation of low-level arguments that grew into arguments where deadly force was used by one or both parties. Homicides were up 25% in 2024. Total aggravated assaults were up 3%, with aggravated assaults involving a firearm up 4% in 2024. A significant number of these homicide suspects had prior relationships with the victims. Furthermore, 28 of the homicides stem from an escalation from an argument. There's not a single approach to stopping homicides that occur throughout the season. It involves more than just police. It also involves more than just when an argument or escalation begins to happen. It involves the court system, the entire criminal justice court system in the community, and the continued work that we see that we're doing with juveniles. However, you look at the homicide clearance rate, the national average is 60% to clear a homicide. Our homicide detectives work diligently, they work hard, and they're some of the finest in the country, clearing up over 75% of the cases from 2024. And they don't just end when the year ends. They continue to work these cases, and we expect that number to even go up. We've also seen the impacts of legislation throughout our state that have helped us out in some of our challenges that we faced when it came to crime that we've been working on so diligently. The Pretrial Integrity Act that you heard me talk about so much, that I worked with the District Attorney Spencer Merriweather on, went into effect late in 2023. That has shown a significant impact in the accountability that we hold to some of these criminals that we are taking to jail, and also the accountability of how they're getting out in pretrial. So some of the most violent offenders now have to go before a judge in order to get a pretrial release, and that's been effective in some of our efforts. The legislation around street racing and street takeovers has significantly impacted what we're seeing here in Charlotte. I have to commend our legislators who have passed these laws to make our jobs a lot easier in combating these crimes. Street takeovers have, in 2023, compared to 2023, we saw an 88% decline in pop-up street takeover events. We also saw a 71% decline in prearranged street takeover events. And that's pretty significant. That's very impactful. And then also effective in December of last year, of 2024, we saw 16 and 17-year-olds now accountable for some of the most violent crimes, Class A through E felonies, that now will go straight to adult jail if they commit those offenses. we are already seeing positive impact from that. But you can't discount the work that we've been putting into some of the juvenile, with our juveniles, because the goal is always to change that cycle, to get them on a different path, and to take them away from criminal activity. And anything that we can do to divert that, we're going to make sure that we try to take those efforts very seriously. So now I'm going to ask Lieutenant Tran Thompson to come up and speak particularly about some of our juvenile efforts. So, Lieutenant Tran.
Thank you, Chief. My name is Lieutenant Eric Tran Thompson, and I'm the Executive Officer in the Special Services Group. As the Chief stated, in late 2024, there was a significant change in the state law against violent juvenile offenders. House Bill 834 allows law enforcement agencies to charge 16 and 17-year-olds as adults for high-level felonies. We view this change as a critical step forward in ensuring the accountability for the most violent juvenile offenders. A recent success to highlight is a juvenile who was listed as a suspect in 35 incidents with 72 offenses, including armed robbery, aggravated assault, motor vehicle theft, and possession of stolen firearms. Due to House Bill 834, this juvenile is now being held on a $1 million bond for attempted first-degree murder, multiple assaults with a deadly weapon on a government official, and numerous other charges. Juvenile crime remains a significant issue in Charlotte, but we are committed to addressing it with innovative solutions and community partnerships. At the start of 2024, we launched the Juvenile Accountability and Diversion Empowerment, or JADE team. This unit is focused on juvenile investigations, monitoring at-risk youth, and conducting operations aimed at reducing and breaking the cycle of recidivism. JADE has been instrumental in tackling juvenile crime, but we know this is not a problem we can solve alone. We need the community's help to ensure our youth have the resources and guidance to stay out of trouble. At such an impressionable age, our focus is to provide resources and opportunities for a positive change while holding juveniles accountable for their actions. In 2024, JADE conducted 200 home visits where officers worked to build trust, educate families, and provide resources. Some of these home visits were done to repeat offenders. JADE officers visited a home of juveniles involved in major holiday celebrations that were arrested, and out of those 42 home visits, only one juvenile reoffended. Throughout 2024, JADE arrested 122 juveniles involved in criminal activity. The team recovered 94 firearms and 17 pounds of narcotics, helping make our streets safer. Let's take a look at one of JADE's success stories. In September, JADE, in collaboration with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau, York County Sheriff's, Pineville and Cornelius Police Departments, our Crime Gun Suppression Team, and Safe Streets Task Force investigated multiple break-ins at gun stores in the region. Their efforts led to the arrest of 4 juveniles, the recovery of 17 firearms, and a suppressor, preventing further crimes by breaking up an organized ring to traffic stolen firearms. While JADE has made tremendous strides in juvenile crime, it's still a pressing issue. In 2025, we will continue to meet with our partner agencies, including the District Attorney's Office and the Department of Juvenile Justice, to invest in long-term solutions. We are calling on the community to join us in this effort. Parents, mentors, neighbors all have a role to play in guiding our youth and helping us build a safer city. Together, we can empower our children to choose a better path and ensure the city's interactions with law enforcement are only positive ones. At this point, I'd like to introduce Major Brett Balamuki to discuss more proactive efforts in addressing violent crime.
Thank you, Lieutenant Thompson, Tran Thompson. Hello, everyone. My name is Brett Balamuki. I'm the major over the Southeast Service Area for Patrol. I'm pleased to report that we had a successful reduction in violent crime in the fourth quarter, 4%. So we reduced violent crime by 4% the fourth quarter. Additionally, we also, through proactive initiatives that were implemented, we reduced assault by or aggravated assault with deadly weapon with a gun by 3%. So as we went into the fourth quarter, we really looked as an organization of how we could have an impact on the violent crimes that have the most impact on our citizens. One of those initiatives that we really focused on for reduction was called the Core 13. What the Core 13 was, it's a coordinated effort we launched in the fourth quarter to address violent areas that kind of had our areas of the most victimization. So our crime analyst team and our entire units worked together. They identified hotspots that we put the CORE team at, and what CORE stands for is Coordinated Overlap Response Effort, and it's a department-wide initiative. So all 13 patrol divisions all came together to focus efforts on the areas that had our highest victimization. So officers that are involved with Core 13, each night they deploy to these areas and they have roll call in the communities that need to see them the most. So in these highest victimization areas, now you have Core 13 officers coming together, visible in the community, having roll calls to share information, but then also go out and proactively work those areas and increase our visibility. They're led by our operational command lieutenants overnight. They work in collaboration with the division leadership and our real-time crime center. And in a just over 2-month period, at the end of the year, they seized 75 firearms and had 123 arrests. So when we look at that short window towards the end of the year, every one of those guns really matters. You know, every one of those arrests, you know, hopefully broke a cycle of crime. A notable success you'll see on the screen is Mr. DeMonte Beasley. He's a convicted felon with multiple crimes, including armed robbery. They observed him driving recklessly towards a dead-end street, engaged with him, ended up making an arrest and a seizure of him. He had thrown a gun while they were trying to get out with him. Come to find out, he's a convicted felon. So now Mr. Beasley doesn't have the possession of the firearm anymore, but more importantly, you know, you've got someone who's a convicted felon who no longer possesses a gun in one of our most violent areas of the city. I think that as we look at the impact that that has, he's charged with carrying a concealed weapon. He's charged with possession of a firearm by felon. He bonds out. 9 days later, he commits an armed robbery of a Sam's Mart in Charlotte. So you got a commercial robbery that he's involved with. He's identified, and as our Metro Division usually does, they get after it. They locate him. It turns into a pursuit. Luckily, no one's injured, but they capture him, put him back in custody, and he's currently in custody under a $300,000 secured bond. So from the Core 13 firearm arrest to the armed robbery arrest to the pursuit arrest, you know, now Mr. Beasley is just an example of that collaborative effort that all of CMPD takes to really just reduce violent offenders that are free on the street. We talked about these collective efforts as a department. Core 13 shows that exceptional teamwork across specialized units. K9 rode with them many nights, our real-time crime center, our communicators, our crime analysis team. Our aviation unit was a great asset to that, to be able to help us when people are running in groups and then flee. Together, I think we are making a measurable difference in the safety of our community. Another effort I want to highlight today is something that involves shooting into occupied properties, specifically homes. So later this month, we'll be launching a pilot initiative program, which is going to be known as CMPD Safety Wellness Initiative Towards Community Households. Safety Wellness Initiative Towards Community Households. And that stands for CMPD Switch. The goal of Switch is to reduce the rampant shootings into occupied homes. As you heard earlier, sometimes, we saw a reduction on incidents over last year, but what we didn't see is a reduction of victims of violent crime. And that's because a lot of times these numbers of people that are victimized during one incident are increased because of shootings into occupied homes. There were over 800 shooting into occupied property shootings last year. Most of these are drive-by shootings where one resident's targeted, but many times, these criminals ride by and shoot multiple apartments. Although they may only be targeting one, they end up hitting 4 or 5, and now everyone inside is not only a victim psychologically, but also statistically. Some of these instances had over 20 victims involved. You heard about the school bus earlier from the chief and from Lieutenant Fletcher. These are unacceptable. Even if no one is physically injured during these attacks, the trauma that happens to the entire neighborhood occurs. Hence why I think that we are dedicated to continuing that pathway of looking for solutions. I'll give you an example. In December, we had an incident, right after school had finished, in the afternoon, where over 100 rounds. So let me just talk 100 rounds here, right? So you've got multiple shooters, right, that are shooting multiple guns in a neighborhood full of kids, full of people doing normal things, and they decide to shoot over 100 rounds of ammunition at this barrage of whoever they're shooting at. 100 rounds were shot during this one instance. And so when we think about that, I didn't see it on the news, right? I didn't see it activate or upset anyone that didn't live right in that neighborhood. So when we look at what the 100 rounds means, you talk about thinking about going home and imagine someone shooting 12, 10, one round through your living room, into your child's bedroom, into your television, into your personal space. How that affects you, right? You're not hit, you look, you're like, okay, not a big deal, I'm not hit. But how do you carry that? How do you go to sleep that night? How do your children go to sleep after they've had to hide in the bathtub from gunfire? And even if your house isn't targeted and it's the house next door, it doesn't mean you don't carry that with you. How do you then go back to sleep to try to get ready for school in the morning? As I think about the CSS techs, the crime scene search techs, that go out there and have to weed in the dark and try to hunt down these casings from these bullets that just shatter these homes, you think about all the work and effort that we put into trying to reduce these and stop these, but they don't create a reaction from the community. And I think that as we look at safety and wellness as a whole, I always hear, well, not my neighborhood, not my house, not my family. And what I want people to understand and see and support is that we're all responsible for the safety and wellness of everyone in Charlotte. And although it's not my neighborhood and it's not my home, this should infuriate that you could have over 100 rounds or even one round fired randomly into a house. And the only time that it creates a visceral response from the community is when a child is hit. And even that is short-lived. If someone else is hit or no one's hit, just it's become normalized. And CMPD is committed to not letting that be normalized. And as we look forward to CMPD switch is going to allow us to add additional investigators and supervisions when these crimes occur. They are going to supplement our ongoing efforts by our crime gun suppression team, by our firearms detectives, by our division detectives, and it really is us giving more resources to what's important to us and what should be important to the entire community. We're going to highlight captures. You're going to see them on social media. You're going to see where we've now got a commitment to guarantee a $500 cash payment through Crime Stoppers to anyone that gives us information that leads to the arrest, not the conviction, that's going to come. The arrest of someone who shoots into a home. We'll get them anonymously. They can go through Crime Stoppers, submit that information, and if an arrest is made off their information, $500 cash can go to that citizen. That's our commitment to continue to push that collaboration and trust that we build to stop these instances. CMPD Switch is it's a collaborative effort between CMPD, our partners with the District Attorney's Office, with our community stakeholders. You know, we believe CMPD Switch is going to set the tone early in 2025 that these callous shootings will not be tolerated, and that our investigators will find those responsible and hold them accountable. It's not acceptable to terrorize our communities, creating fear, anxiety, and stress. Don't wait for gunfire to wake you up. Wake up now, Charlotte. Activate and help us switch the mindset that these shootings are unacceptable. Now I'm going to introduce you to Major Ryan Kendall, who's going to come up and talk about some other initiatives.
Morning. Excuse me. Major Ryan Kendall. I'm over the Patrol Southwest service area. There are three major initiatives I'll be covering this morning. First up is our Civilian Crash Investigation Unit. We introduced this new unit to you on December 11th. It was created to reduce the time patrol officers spend responding to minor crashes. Officers were spending about 40,000 hours annually on these minor crashes. This makes up about 71% of the crashes officers respond to on average over the past 3 years. Our CCIs are state certified and have been hard at work since the unit's launch. Between December 12th and December 31st, these investigators responded to 306 minor crashes that did not involve injuries. Their efforts during the peak hours of most crashes, which is between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m., Monday through Friday, allows patrol officers to be freed up to be deployed to more urgent calls for service throughout the city. We're excited about this program. We'll have much more to share on the Civilian Crash Investigation Unit in the months ahead. Another initiative we're exploring is the use of drones as first responders. Several departments across the country have implemented DFR programs to include Philadelphia, Oklahoma City, and Las Vegas. We plan to pilot this program for several reasons. Sending a drone to respond before an officer arrives can provide critical information ahead of any police interaction. Drones can send visual information to our real-time crime center and allow them to communicate directly with our operations command staff and our communicators. This means the first officer to arrive will have a much clearer picture of the situation before any interaction occurs. This information can help officers de-escalate situations faster and lead to safer outcomes for everybody involved. There'll be more to come on this program when the details are finalized. The last initiative I'll discuss is our Connect Charlotte program. Late last year, we launched Connect Charlotte, a pilot program that leverages technology to enhance community safety. Connect Charlotte utilizes the Fusus software platform to facilitate collaboration between the police department, businesses, and residents in crime-solving efforts. Fusus is a software platform produced by Axon that enables police to partner with businesses and residents to share their video footage related to criminal investigations. So let's briefly discuss our existing real-time crime center, which, as you know, utilizes a network of cameras across Charlotte to assist in criminal investigations. While these networks are a tremendous asset, they're limited mainly to our major thoroughfares and our large commercial areas. Connect Charlotte will significantly expand our ability to gather evidence in a variety of investigations by allowing us to gain access to new camera assets on our secondary roads and in our neighborhoods. Our residents have been able to log on to connectcharlotte.org and register their home camera systems. Now, this does not give CMPD access to your cameras at your home. It merely lets officers know this camera has a home. Or excuse me, this home has a camera. So if a criminal incident occurs in the vicinity, a detective can contact the resident by phone or email and request any relevant footage that the camera may have captured. So this limits the need for us to go door to door searching for evidence and allows residents to discreetly cooperate with criminal investigations and help us solve the crimes in their neighborhood. Businesses are able to go next level with this and integrate their camera systems with CMPD. This allows officers in our real-time crime center or on patrol to access the business camera feeds in real time and have the most accurate information about events unfolding during a call for service or another emergency. We recently celebrated our first 2 business integrations in the North Tryon Division. This is one of our corridors of opportunity and is also the focus for many of our initiatives. We had 2 business owners that were eager to integrate their cameras in an effort to enhance our partnership and reduce crime in the neighborhood. We look forward to continue growing our partnerships and integrating more business cameras as we move into 2025. Currently, we have over 830 integrated cameras. Most of these are city-owned, and over 200 registered cameras as part of the program to include residences and businesses. It's crucial to reiterate one more time that CMPD will never access home camera footage and will not access business cameras without explicit permission from the business. The Connect Charlotte system prioritizes data security with robust encryption and adherence to the highest security standards. By mapping camera locations, accessing evidence, and identifying crime trends, Connect Charlotte will help contribute to a safer community. For more information on this, please log on to connectcharlotte.org, scan the QR code behind me, or we also have some cards for you to pick up on your way out today. Now I'd like to turn the podium back over to Chief Jennings.
Thank you, Major Kendall. I can't let the press conference end without discussion on April 29th of 2024. April 29th, a day that rocked our entire country, that rocked our entire state, our city, our department. It's a day that will undoubtedly live within every single employee that was working here and that affected every single employee working here, including me. It was a devastation that we had to face in losing 4 brave officers in our community, and also with an additional 7 who were injured. It was a huge impact on all of us. But we saw the heroism that went out when it came to our response and how our department kept going to keep our community safe. Not once did you hear any of our officers shutting it down and not doing the work that was necessary. So I couldn't be more proud of being a part of this agency. In my 33 years, it was the worst tragedy that we've seen in this department. But we're a resilient group, and we came together, and it made us stronger. It absolutely made us a stronger agency. I saw how our officers came together to support one another. And I saw how they continued to keep their pride in being a police officer and keeping our community safe. And that's important to me, and that validates why we got in this profession in the first place. As you know, the District Attorney, Spencer Meriwether, has closed the investigation. It was last August. We've also closed our internal investigation. So the investigation is concluded, and we moved on, and we'll continue to keep and honor all of those officers in our thoughts, prayers, memories, and they will remain a part of the CMPD family. Now again, like I said, we found strength in supporting each other, reaffirmed our commitment to this mission. We achieved new milestones that underscored the resilience and dedication that define who we are as CMPD. And this year has presented this department with unprecedented challenges. But I assure you that our community, we have continued to keep our community safe, and we will never waver in our commitment to the citizens of Mecklenburg County and Charlotte. So we'll continue to strive to be the best police department in the entire country, and that will never stop. But again, thank you for being a part of this year-end briefing. At this time, I will take any questions. I can't really see, but I think there's a hand over there. So, yes.
Hi, Chief. Jeff Chamber with the Charlotte Observer.
Yes.
You mentioned that some legislation this year has helped reduce some crime in the city, but as we saw, homicides went up and there was some violent crime that went up. there's probably a number of factors that went into that, like the increase in population, but is there any legislation that you think were particularly harmful and made that increase possible or made it worse?
As far as legislation that's harmful,
Yeah.
honestly, I can't think of anything right offhand. If I do, I can get back with you. But I'm really proud of the last, actually 2 or 3 years, that we've been able to have our voices heard in Raleigh, and that there have been responses in a positive way to help with legislation to help us do our jobs. You know, there are things in here that wasn't mentioned. The example, the hotel motels, the Safety Act with defining residency for hotels that helped us define who we can have removed from hotels and who gets to stay there as a resident. So when we are able to voice these concerns, and we know that there are ears that are listening and lawmakers who are making those changes, then we certainly appreciate that. But we've had a lot of success in changing the way some of these laws are read and creating new ones. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Alex Axios.
Yes.
I want to get your take on this conversation we've been having in the community about perception versus reality.
Yes.
What are you saying to people who are wondering, is Charlotte becoming a more dangerous place
Yeah.
as we grow into a bigger city, or is this really just a perception
Yeah.
issue?
It's a great question. It's hard to fight perception, right? And the way that we fight perception is to give objective data like we're trying to do today, and to be able to accept that data as is, because we have to also look within the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department that we can't ignore what that perception is. And everybody, the buzz term perception is reality. Well, it's that individual's reality. If you don't feel safe, then that person, then we need to be able to do something, because we want everybody in our community to be able to live, work, and play and feel safe about doing so. But as we continue on, we have to always make sure that the data is leading the response from police. Because I've said before that, do you want me to send resources where there's a perception of crime, or do you want me to send those resources where there is actual data that reinforces that crime in and of itself? So it's always going to be a challenge. This isn't the first time that perception has been on the forefront. But if you look at the numbers, a lot of these numbers are also battling lower numbers over the last few years, where we've seen steady reductions in violent crime. And then it's difficult to maintain that, particularly as our population is growing as quickly as it is. Yes, Brett.
Violent crime is up a little bit. Are you also seeing violence against officers up in terms of, whether it's officer-involved shootings, assaults on officers? Is that up as well? Do you have that data?
Yeah, we do have that data. I just saw it not long ago. I do think that is up. We have seen more assaults on officers, particularly since 2020. We've seen a lot more, and I think that's a national trend that we've been seeing. And it certainly is concerning. We certainly want to make sure that our officers are not encountered with violence when they are simply doing their jobs. But we have to ensure that they're trained to be able to de-escalate those situations as well. So, yes, sir.
I'll get you with WFAE.
Yes.
How much has Operation Jade helped with the reduction in youth crime?
I think it's a significant impact on it, because we're not, with Operation Jade, they're not simply waiting on these juveniles to go out and commit crimes. They're getting out in front of it. And not just the Jade program, but all of our youth programs. We have about 12 youth programs that we've seen the recidivism rate be extremely low, when we're able to impact and get and have programs and things that we can do with these young people, particularly in the summer months, to keep them busy. I think that's a huge impact. And I think Major Balamuki said that it's a cycle. If you can break that cycle, and like I've always mentioned too, that it's not just breaking the cycle of that young person, but it's breaking the cycle of maybe his kids or her kids, and his grandkids or her grandkids. And so we think the impact is more beneficial when you are able to divert a young person from a life of crime. So it's one of those intangibles. I can't sit and say we diverted 1,000 crimes because of our juvenile programs, but I can certainly tell you that it has shown some effect, and and we're very proud of all of them. So, all right. Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Yes.
Looking particularly at the 111 homicide number, the 25% increase from 2023.
Yes.
You highlighted that a lot of them stem from arguments escalating, drug-related domestic
Yes.
violence. I recently saw a number that the number of fatal car crashes in 2024 was 85. So the fact
Yes.
that we had that many more violent incidents and death-related compared to crashes, what do you think that says about the issues we have when it comes to intentional violence? And is there anything you can do about that, since it seems like a lot of the time these victims know one another?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, as I said, it's one of the most difficult things, and this isn't just for me with Charlotte, but I have the opportunity to talk to several major city chiefs across the country, and the effect that you can have on homicides, it can't be related just to what we do proactively in policing. We can have some effect depending on, I mean, you heard some of the stories earlier about arresting a convicted felon who's has a firearm, illegally has a firearm, and who's robbing people. Well, does that arrest and keeping that individual in jail keep him, at some point, is that going to escalate to a homicide? We don't know that, right? So I think that what we can do is continue to work with all of our partners, the district attorney's office, the court system, the judges, to make sure that we are looking at the right people who have that propensity to escalate their violent criminal acts, and to make sure that they're not preying on our citizens, and also those who are involved in high-risk lifestyles, giving them other opportunities to get out of that high-risk lifestyle so they don't become victimized themselves. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, Jesse, WCMC, have some questions sent in. The CMP, this is public safety. Does CMPD currently have enough resources to enforce traffic violations and pull drivers over for reckless driving, like running red lights, for examples? And the second question, the city's applying for a grant for the governor's highway safety program to increase enforcement of traffic laws. How will this help the department? And I can repeat it.
Yeah. You talk fast. So yeah, I think I can. Yes. As far as the resources for traffic safety, you know, I can just tell you there's never enough resources. You can't be on every road and every all the time. Traffic enforcement is one aspect of what we do. We also depend on the State Highway Patrol. Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office does some traffic enforcement as well. We know that what we have seen, a lot of reckless driving over the last several years. I think after 2020, I think people felt like they could drive as fast as they wanted to, and I see it every day. It's difficult to watch and understand that why people would put their lives on the line driving recklessly. But more resources absolutely would help. We do have a traffic unit. They do traffic operations based on high crash incidents and complaints. But again, they can't be everywhere. Our officers that are going from call to call to call, you know, a lot of times there's not as much time to go out and enforce traffic as there used to be. We do hope that we can have initiatives of technology that can help us with traffic enforcement as well. This morning I was talking about red light cameras and speed cameras. Anything that we can do to help us be more effective and efficient in that area is important to us. And there was another question in that.
The city's applying for a grant from the
Yes.
governor's highway safety program to increase enforcement of traffic
Yes.
laws. How will this help?
That's a grant we do every single year, and it allows us to have the resources, the manpower, and the ability to go out and do these traffic operations that I spoke of. But we also, you know, we have to depend on with our highways, with the State Highway Patrol as well. So those grants, not just with traffic, but grants within CMPD that we are able to get, help us to continue to have the resources, the equipment, and the ability to keep our community safe. So, yes, ma'am.
Jordan Kudish, Spectrum News. You know, we talk about violence against officers being up, and you know, we can't help but notice, April 29th tragedy, and then most recently in Greensboro,
Yeah.
Officer Horan being killed. How does that impact officers' morale? Because I know, speaking with officers, they say, yes, I love the job, and
Yes.
that's why you do it, but I don't think I could keep putting on that uniform knowing that that violence is up.
Yeah, and you know, there are some that determine that it's not for them at some point, but you know, I comment a lot about, and I tell our people a lot, that we put this uniform on and we don't know if we're going home. We can't guarantee that we're coming back home. And unfortunately, you hear that enough, and eventually you start to just go in one ear out the other. But when you see something like what happened in Greensboro, what happened here April 29th, it brings that to reality. And it makes our officers understand that the vigilance that's required to be this job. My goal is to come and put this uniform on and to take it off at the end of the day and go home and leave this job behind. And so it's important that they stay vigilant, but it also is a stark reminder for the dangers that we put ourselves in under every single day, the scrutiny that comes with being a police officer. You know, I think that what, for the most part, they see what helps them get through the day is the community support. When a community member simply comes up and says, thank you for your service. It goes a long way. It goes a lot longer than what that person might feel like it does. But when you hear that and you have that appreciation for this job, that's what keeps a lot of us going.
Do you think it impacts recruitment?
I can't say that because I don't correlate number of applications or hiring going down based on critical incidents that we might see. Since April 29th, we've had a huge increase in applications. We've had a huge increase in hiring. But I think that when you look at how our department came together, I really believe that made a lot of people say, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that agency. So I think you can go ahead. Yeah.
What were the areas of Core 13 identified with the most victimization?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. The areas of Core 13, what?
Identified with the most victimization?
Oh, the areas of Core 13 identified with the most victimization? Okay. You want to come answer that? Don't be shy. Yes.
So the question was, what areas were the highest victimization that were identified for the Core 13 initiative? And the answer would be Steel Creek Division, around what's referred to as the U, which is Nations Ford, Airwood, that area of South Boulevard. Tom Hunter, North Tryon was another area that had high victimization, and then Beatty's Ford and LaSalle. So those three areas were consistently, time was focused at, and then there were some other divisions that also, as real time and crime analysis saw spikes in crime, they would be able to move them immediately to those areas to keep it safe.
Oh, Brett, yes.
When you look back at 2024, would you consider it a success in policing? What were your biggest successes, and what areas do you have that were the biggest improvements?
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous success in the response from our officers, the work that they put in, the work that they did. I'll never be satisfied when it comes to people say, well, what do you want a goal to be for your homicides? My goal is 0, and as long as we have people that are out there killing each other, then I think we still have a lot of work to do. But you know, to say are these numbers considered success? I don't think I've ever used our crime stats as saying we had a successful year, because you try telling someone who's been victimized by a robbery or a homicide or assault that we had a successful year in crime. It's, you know, when they're still struggling from being victimized from that. So, but I will say that I'm impressed every single year when I see the proactive numbers that our officers are, or the initiatives that they're taking, these ideas that you're hearing are not coming from me. I'm not sitting in an office saying, hey, go start a JADE program. These are ideas that are coming from officers, from lieutenants, captains, majors, and deputy chiefs that are responsive to what we're doing. So that to me is success. And every year that we continue to do new operations, every year that we see our numbers going up and our officers responding, then that's what makes me proud of this agency. So, was there one back there first? Did you? Yes. And who else? Okay.
I was going to ask, what would be something that would be most helpful to your department to not see a rise in 2025 homicides that we did in 2024?
Wow. What would be successful in our department in not seeing a rise in homicides? Is that was the question, or what we need? And
anything locally, state, federal, like what's something that would be most impactful to stop that increase?
Yeah. You know, I was looking at an article just the other day about Baltimore City that granted they were up in the 300s of homicides, and now they're down in 200s, but it's still a significant decline. A lot of the praise that I saw them give was to the district attorney's office in some of these violent offenders, that the district attorney's office was given the resources to prosecute some of these violent offenders that were on that path to committing a homicide. I think our district attorney's office desperately needs more resources. We need to be able to, I looked at the number of arrests that, I think it was in 1 week we had over 120 arrests from CMPD, and just to see how all of this accumulates over to the district attorney's office, I don't know how they're able to keep up with the resources that they have. So that would be probably very helpful. There are grassroots organizations that are out there that can also get out into the streets that we need to be able to support, that when violence is erupting in certain parts of neighborhoods, that there are people who will actually get out there and go speak with some of these offenders and talk with their parents and go into those houses. And that's why I say it's not something that you look at and say we look at the police just to solve this matter. It has to be a holistic approach. So, yes, go ahead.
Recently there was an officer-involved shooting with a person who was having a mental health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Does the department track that type of information whenever there's a mental health crisis involved in a response? And if so, is there information available from 2024 about those incidents?
About mental health response? Yeah, we do track those calls. We do have information. I don't have it right in front of me, but again, we have to look at some of the responses that we have with the CARES team that was put in place that recently, just late list in 2024, was turned over to the county. We still support them in dispatching in any way that we can, but the CARES team is a group of clinicians that go out low-level mental health calls for service that you don't necessarily need a police officer there. We also have our Community Policing Crisis Response Team, or CPCRT team, who is our officers paired with a clinician, that they are able to respond and follow up to these calls for service. So we have some plans out there to help deal with the mental health calls for service, but we also do track when our officers are encountering. If we can identify it's a mental health call for service, we do have that information that we can pass along. Yes, we'll get it to you. All right. I'll turn. Oh, yeah. Kevin? Yeah, all right, thank you.
For visual evidence for scenes and additional adding cameras around the city and connecting with business, which are probably useful to police.
Yes.
What do you say to the average citizen to educate more that they are not be understood?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because when people hear about drones and the video capabilities of a drone, they obviously the privacy does come into play that they're concerned with. What I will say is that as we look at other agencies that have this technology, we do have drones, but we don't have drones as first responders. But they have policies and procedures in place that ensure that these drones are not looking in the houses, they're not looking in the residential areas, and that they're simply going to that call for service and responding to that call for service, no different than if you're driving a police car going there. So I will say that it is also something that if you misuse technology, it will be taken away from you. So we are adamant that you have to have technology to help us with the response to be more efficient and effective as an agency, but you also have to be very responsible with that. So great question. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Jennings, and all of our speakers today. A link to the full annual report will be pushed out onto our social media platforms as well as the CMPD newsroom website. I encourage you all to take a look at it. We also have a press release posted to these platforms with further information. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.